If you have a question, to put the little emoji, raise your hand. It's easy for us to see, and it's easy for Venerable Robina to see that.
Okay. All right, darling people. Well, why I'm in New York, I'm in New York because Jamie Lloyd, you might have seen him online. He's in the UK. He does a few jobs. He helps us, and he also helps Thupten Norbuling. He's a director of plays. He's a theatre director in London. Well, he's not in London, but his theatres, his plays are probably in London. I don't know. Anyway, because the Tony Awards, which is like the Oscars for plays, for Broadway, basically. So he was his play from 2 years ago was nominated for a few awards. So he's here. And I figured, I don't know, I need a day off. So let's go to New York, So because it's my favorite city. So now I'm in New York for a few days. That's it. That's why I'm here. Well, I tried to get to the Tonys with him, but his guest ticket was given away. And anyway, I couldn't have sat with him. And secondly, if I had to buy one, it would have cost $2,500. So it wasn't worth doing that. But I am going to the after party. I don't shock anybody. Buddhists don't go to a party. I'll try and keep my bodhisattva vows to do it for the sake of sentient beings, okay? Anyway, that's it. So that I'm here, and now it's 7 p.m. in New York, so perfect timing. Okay, sweetie pies, let's talk about something. Well, there's something to think about, that little 2-minute video thing I do on the different social medias, which Jamie organizes anyway. It was about, because, here in New York City, I mean, I'm in Santa Fe, right? And you see 3 or 4 people down the street, and there are a few tourists, and they're all very well behaved. And I haven't seen any gangsters yet, and I haven't seen any drunk people on the streets. I haven't seen any junkies having overdoses, and I don't see over bins of rubbish falling on the floor, and I don't see all the chaos that New York City is, Manhattan. But I like it, right? So the thing is, I mean, if you lived in little Santa Fe for a few years and suddenly landed in Manhattan, you'd have a mental breakdown. You think you're in some crazy place, some insane asylum, So the thing I mentioned on the something to think about little video was, there's a saying in Tibetan, you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. So what I'm going to talk about is really the approach from the bodhisattva path. It's kind of very interesting. I mean, you all know, or you might not know, but if you studied a little bit of Tibetan Buddhism, you know that the teachings are and the practices are presented in stages, And it's, first of all, it's quite hard to hear that because we don't quite know what it means. So the basic level of practice is sort of the most obvious. You learn to behave nicely. You don't badmouth. You don't shoot. You don't abuse people, you don't lie, you don't use your body and speech to harm others. So the fundamental first level of practice for the Buddha is discipline yourself, be nice, don't harm others. So of course the crucial point in Buddhism, the crucial reason not to harm others, most of us, if we say, well, why don't you harm others? We'd say, oh, well, because people don't want to get hurt and it's a nice way to behave. But that's not enough reason. It's not enough reason. This is where it's quite curious. The Buddhist reason is a bit shocking to us initially. It doesn't seem right, The reason for the Buddha, why he exhorts us to behave nicely, not kill, not steal, not lie, discipline your body and speech. Why? The key reason at this first level of practice, because he says, guess what, honey? Everything you think and you say and you do, and this is the law of karma, this is what drives the Buddhist philosophy. Everything you think and do and say, Robina, will sow seeds in your mind and produce results similar to those actions. So then I think, well, do I want to get killed? Well, no, thank you. Do I want to be bad-mouthed, harmed, sick? No, thank you. Well, then it makes sense. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie. But we kind of gloss over this in our culture because the other reason is we think, oh, that sounds selfish. How can I not kill for my sake? But the Buddha's point is you've got to start there first. Then eventually when you start to go to the next level of practice, go to the compassion wing, and you start to cultivate real love and compassion, then everything, that becomes the basis of everything you do. So in a sense, the way we'd say it in our culture, they don't say it like this, but we understand it. The reason you don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, the reason you live in vows, the reason you discipline your body, speech, and mind is because of the law of karma. You produce yourself. So who wants to produce a crazy, maniac, lying, killing, demented person? It's pretty self-evident. So it's obvious for your own sake. You've got to understand this is like having compassion for yourself. It's a bit like, why don't you eat wrong food? Well, you don't want to be unhealthy. You don't say, oh, that's selfish. I should do it for the sake of others. Well, not yet, please. for your own sake first. Then once you've got nutrition down and you've got some compassion for yourself and you develop a nice, strong, healthy body, now you're ready to benefit others to do the same thing. It's exactly the same here, you know. So it's for our sake. So at this level of practice, there's no kind of wiggle room, you know, you just behave nicely. You don't kill, you don't steal, you don't lie, you live in your vows, you do purification every day, you practice, and you're turning yourself into a marvelous person. I mean, this should be so encouraging to us. So then you go to the next level when now you start to look outside and you go, wow, we're all in the same boat. Everyone's crazy. Everyone's harming themselves. Look at them, not killing, stealing, lying, cheating on their partners, not realizing they're producing an unhappy person. I mean, this is the real simple point. We're producing ourselves, you know. It's a simple way they put it. I mean, we put it that way. It's a very powerful way to say it. So then you start to realize we're all in the same boat and you start to have compassion for others. So now this is the thing, you know, once you start to seriously progress on the path, and I mean really seriously progress, and you get renunciation, you give up attachment, give up anger, and we're talking serious levels of spiritual practice. I mean, truly to give up in a very profound level, then you start to have incredible empathy for others, incredible compassion for others. And so at this point, you see there's different sets of vows that go along with these different levels of practice. So the next level of vows, the benefit of not killing, not stealing, not lying is for you, so you can produce a nice, together, disciplined person in the future. So now what's the reason behind the Bodhisattva vows? Well, the first lot are so you don't get harmed. Now the Bodhisattva vows, and they're more advanced necessarily, are so that you know how to benefit others. So at this level, if you really genuinely become a Bodhisattva, which is so highly realized, you can't believe it. I mean, a really amazingly advanced, serious, advanced practitioner, then, you know, you would happily break an earlier vow. You'd break a vow to not to kill or steal or lie, because your Bodhisattva vows are way more powerful. And because you have so much more wisdom, you would see that it's beneficial to lie. It's beneficial for that person to steal. It's even beneficial for that person to kill them. Now, this sounds so shocking you can't even hear the words. It just doesn't make sense. But when you understand the teachings, you study the teachings, you'll get to understand this. And we're talking highly realized people, you know. And of course, by this point, you'd have realization of emptiness, maybe you'd have genuine bodhicitta, you'd have clairvoyance, you'd be a really amazing, powerful person. So you can see more deeply into the mind of a person and know really wisely what is the very best thing to do for their sake, based on incredible compassion and wisdom. So there's always a story I tell about Lama Yeshe. So Lama is considered to be a highly realized being, you know. And our friend Harry is, you know, years and years ago in Kopan, in the early 80s maybe, he was helping one of the Kopan monks, a Sherpa, who was very sick. And Harry had found a doctor to help this monk. And so then he happened to mention to Lama Yeshe, oh, I found a doctor for this monk. And Lama basically said, he doesn't need a doctor, leave it alone, he's okay. So Harry didn't question Lama, he trusted his wisdom. He has complete faith in Lama's wisdom. And so then eventually the monk got sicker and sicker. And then he went up to the mountains because he's a Sherpa, and he died. Now, to his family, you know, and he died very well. So that sounds quite shocking. It sounds like Lama Yeshe just didn't care. It sounds like Lama knew he was sick and didn't bother getting a doctor. So you'd interpret that quite shocking, you know, what is Lama on about? How come he didn't get the fellow a doctor? But this is the point. Lama Lundup, the abbot of Kopan, went to Harry and mentioned that actually, well, of course, Lama's clairvoyant. You know that. He's a highly evolved being. He's got incredible bodhicitta, incredible wisdom, and he's got this mind. I mean, clairvoyance, it sounds so weird to us to think you get clairvoyance, you know, but it's part of the whole deal. It's been around for several thousand years in India. When you've got this subtle single point of concentration, the Hindus invented this, not the Buddha. You know, clairvoyance is one of the natural things that you accomplish because it's a subtle level of mind that's beyond the sensory and the conceptual that has the power to see subtle phenomena like the past, the future, and the minds of others. This is like hippy trippy in our culture, but this is completely fitting in the Hindu and the Buddhist world, you know, because their view of the mind is way more sophisticated, may I suggest. So then because Harry totally trusted Lama, Lama Lundup said, well, of course, Lama could see very clearly that the past karma this young monk created, like past lives, it, you know, was very severe, a heavy negative karma. So his sickness was a consequence of that. But if he'd gotten better as Lama Lundup said, if he'd got in the doctor and he had gotten better, his life would have been fine. But he wouldn't have finished this heavy negative karma, and next life would have been much, much more suffering. So then, because of his wisdom, he could see that by having this sickness, not giving him a doctor, and in fact dying young, and he died very well, he died a really good Buddhist death, that he purified all the karma, and next life, fantastic. Now, who can see that? To even consider that's a possibility. If you said that to a regular person, they think you're mentally ill. They'd sue you for abuse, for believing in such nonsense, But this is the Buddhist view. So I mean, even right there, to have the clairvoyance to see the karma of a person is the real basis for knowing how to benefit somebody. But who's got that wisdom? We don't even consider it possible, We just act according to what we see. So even just the example of Lama Yeshe, you hear that, and if you didn't know anything about karma and had no view about Buddhism, you would really think he was a shocking person. Like, you hear these stories about people who don't believe in taking medicine. I don't know, like maybe the Seventh-day Adventists or the Mormons or somebody. I don't know. Some people, because of their religion, well, they're considered really harmful, and they're even put into court, because that's like they caused the death of their child. That would be considered really shocking, So, I mean, that's a simple example. I mean, Lama's not a crazy person, but he's like a highly realized person. And to hear that story, if you don't have a basis, how can you know he's right or wrong? But I mean, if you've checked up on Lama Yeshe, you'll see he's a holy being. He's got a reputation for being a holy being. So it's quite an intense thing to think about, So how you can't possibly tell. I mean, this is not the kind of what I meant when I walk down New York City and see crazy people. But even with Lama Yeshe doing that kind of action, he's either deluded and really harmful and no compassion at all, or he is a highly evolved being who can see the minds of others. I mean, that's really a difficult one for us, But I mean, more the point that so then you don't know who anybody is. Don't judge, But that's heavy for us. And why is that heavy for us? I mean, it seems too shocking to say you don't know who anybody is, don't judge. Like if you're walking down Manhattan, and all these people, crazy people and alcoholics on the street and junkies sleeping in the middle of the street and people begging. And what you see is, this is the interesting point, the Buddhist view, this is quite heavy. We see things, we sort of know this, according to our capacity. So if you think about this, if you're a very angry person, you'd walk down Manhattan streets and you'd be shocked. Look at those evil people. Look at those drunken people. Look at those alcoholics. Look at those junkies. Look at those poor people. Look at all this. How dare all these people? You'd be angry with everybody. And this is really obvious. We all, as Lama Zopa said, the whole world out there appears back to us, to our mind, in the aspect of whatever is in our mind. So there's Lama Yeshe with incredible wisdom and incredible compassion to levels we can't even imagine. So he saw that situation from a much subtler, more profound level of mind. Another person walking along would hear about Lama Yeshe and just go, what an evil person. So everything is only according to our capacity. It's fairly obvious, isn't it? You see the world according to what's in your mind. If you're full of love and compassion, you'd walk down Manhattan, you'd be in tears and compassion for everybody. If you're angry all the time, you'd walk down with an angry mind, criticizing everybody. So it's sort of obvious, but we don't think of it like that. We don't phrase it that way, but that's very powerful. So the Buddha's view is that this reality is much subtler and more amazing than we could ever think. And don't hear that as mystical. So this is where if you do advance your mind, let's say like Lama Yeshe, and you do get clairvoyance, and you do have bodhicitta, and you do have this incredible compassion, and you have this incredible wisdom, the way the world appears to you is so totally different. And we can't even imagine this. We don't talk like this, But it's sort of obvious if you think about it. I mean, people who are always depressed. I'm not being critical. Let's just look at it. That's their mind. So look at the way the world appears back to them as a completely grey, hopeless, boring, depressing place. A person who's really excited and full of love and compassion, they see the world in a completely different way. They'd have compassion, they'd be buoyant, they'd be joyful, they'd be kind. It's sort of obvious, but to say it this way is very interesting, We only see what we've got a capacity to see in our mind, It's very clear. It's not surprising. We don't think we've got all this capacity to develop this incredible way to see the world. We don't have that in our world at all. We don't have that view about the mind. We don't talk about such levels of development mentally, spiritually. We don't talk like that. But so, okay, but how then? So, what would be the way to see it? Forget about who you don't know who anybody is. They could be bodhisattvas, but if you're not highly realized, you don't know. So, how do you see it all? How does one see it all? What would be the most healthy way to see the world? You know, when you walk down the street, whether it's Santa Fe or whether it's Manhattan, you know, or New Delhi or some other place, or a war zone, whatever it might be. Well, that's if you're trying to use Buddhism as your basis for interpreting the world, then obviously the way you bring to bear these views in your mind, and they would inform you of what you're seeing. So in other words, if let's say, I mean, this is obvious, if let's say you are a nutritionist and you've got incredible knowledge in your mind about nutrition, then as you walk down the street, you automatically are going to be looking at people in terms of their health, aren't you? Oh my God, that person needs more of this. Oh my God, that person needs more of that. Oh, look at all these poor suffering people. Look at the sickness. If only they ate more carrots, if only they ate more greens. I mean, you still don't see what I'm saying. If you had that view of the world, you'd see that in other people. If you were, so here, if you've got a Buddhist view of the world, what is the view you've got? You've got the view of karma, that every single sentient being on the one hand is experiencing the fruits of their own past actions, and every single person at that same time is sowing seeds in their mind that will produce their future actions. So that's all related to the whole concept of good ethics, you know. So you could see someone stealing, and then you could go, well, you know, okay, you don't judge, but you would say, my God, look at the stealing. If only he's due to karma, he's got a habit to steal. He thinks it's going to make him happy, and he's stealing. And look at the other person. They must have the karma to be stolen from. So it becomes the framework for interpreting what you're seeing. You don't just get angry or fearful or freaked out. You learn for yourself. You go, thank you for showing me what not to do. I mustn't steal. Thank you for showing me. Not look at those thieves. How dare they steal? You make it much more personal. You make it like a learning for yourself. And then if you see the world through the lenses of compassion, very clear. You have incredible compassion for all the suffering people, the crazy people, the junkie people, the alcoholics, the poor people, whatever. You'd have compassion. So all these views would inform the way you see the world. That's the healthy way, you know. But if you've got a lot of fear, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of depression, you couldn't even stand walking down Manhattan streets. You know, you'd freak out. Oh my God, you're going to get raped. You're going to get stolen from. I don't know who anybody is. You'd be paranoid. I mean, you can't survive like that, you know. So that was what occurred to me to say a few things about. So, of course, not judging is a very difficult thing not to do. It's incredibly difficult, because then you think, well, you know, well, if I don't know who anybody is and that thief coming at me with a gun and he wants my wallet, he could be the Buddha. Well, should I give him my wallet? Should I just relax and let him shoot me if he's the Buddha? Then you get completely ridiculous. You know, you get so confused. No, you just act according to the normal laws, and hopefully he won't shoot you. And if you have to give him your wallet, you give him your wallet and be done with it. But it's hard to say don't judge. You know, what does it mean? We don't get the implications of it. But when you hear the stories, I mean, when you read all the Bodhisattva literature and you hear all kinds of, you know, for example, one story, it's a really good story. I tell this story. When my mother met Lama Yeshe, you know, years ago, obviously, because she died in 1981. So it was a long time ago, obviously. She met Lama Yeshe, and she freaked out a bit because he's very powerful and very charismatic, you know, but she got a bit sort of, he made her nervous, you know. Anyway, never mind. That's not, forget that part of the story. It doesn't matter. That part's not relevant. It was another story I was going to tell, but leave that. So there's a story about bodhisattvas. If you're trying to imagine what a bodhisattva is, then these are highly evolved people, advanced ones, especially who've got clairvoyance, who've got wisdom, who realize emptiness, who've got bodhicitta, amazing beings. And what they're doing is they're going from life to life to life, kind of working on themselves, becoming a Buddha as they keep practicing, but they're also making connections with sentient beings, meaning, you know, you want to, all you're driven by is the wish to lead everybody to enlightenment. But what if a person's not ready for enlightenment? You can't shove it down their throats. So you've got to make a connection with them. They talk about how you make a karmic connection with people. The only reason we meet anybody and we recognize them in a sense is because we've got a karmic connection with people from past lives, right? That's how come we meet people who harm us or who help us. We've got a karmic connection. So bodhisattvas want to gather strong karmic connections with lots of people over many, many lives, because when eventually they become a Buddha, they'll meet these people again and they'll be able to lead them to enlightenment. Well, if you think about the Dalai Lama, you know, everybody, all the Tibetans say he's a Buddha. I mean, I can't tell you if he's a Buddha or not. He's a nice person. I can't tell you if he's a Buddha. I'm not clairvoyant. But, you know, they say he's a Buddha. Now, if he's a Buddha, look at the millions of people who adore him, you know, millions of people who don't adore him either. So that's not just some accident that we think, oh, the Dalai Lama is so marvelous. He must have hooked us over life after life after life to his own process of becoming a Buddha. He must have hooked us one at a time, such that now when we meet him, he's got us, you know, we adore him. So that's because he's hooked us, so he can now benefit us because we listen to him. If you didn't like him, you wouldn't listen to him. If you didn't notice him, you wouldn't listen to him. So now he's able to lead us to enlightenment. So he's done the hard work, you know. So, yeah, so you need this karmic connection. So even this is an interesting point. If throughout your life you meet people who don't like you, you meet people who do like you, but you think, good, I'm making a karmic connection. So even if they don't like you, think, at least they saw me. So may I meet them in a future life. So there's a story about this bodhisattva. You can't tell what a bodhisattva looks like. They don't walk around with halos, you know, they're like regular people. That's why you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. They could be the poor person on this corner of the street. They could be the crazy person, you know, they could be that easily. So this particular bodhisattva doing his job, hooking sentient beings. He's in a particular village and he's nice to everybody. And that's the first way, the best way to hook people is to be nice to them. That's the easiest possible method. But some people are a bit thick-headed. So this one particular, and he hooked everybody, basically, he made connection, he was happy. But there's one woman who didn't notice him and he couldn't leave her behind. He couldn't not make a connection with her. He wanted to make a karmic connection. So 47 lifetimes, when she's ready to be led to enlightenment, he can drag her to enlightenment, you know. So this particular woman, he didn't know what to do to hook her, to connect with her. So he discovered she had this beautiful garden. So I think he rode his horse through her garden. Well, believe me, now she noticed him, shaking and yelling shaking her fist and yelling and shouting, and the whole village probably chucked him out. He didn't care because he'd hooked her. And as the Lama who told the story said, it's better when it comes to connecting with the bodhisattva, it's better to have a bad connection, mean to criticize him, than to have no connection. So that sort of happened when my mother met Lama Yeshe. Normally my mum is the one who runs all the meetings and everybody comes to her with their problems. But somehow he made my mother very vulnerable and she got upset with him. But I think he hooked her. I think he got her. She will never forget him. He made her uneasy, you know. He made her uneasy. So he hooked her. He hooked her. So he'll eventually lead her to enlightenment in 47 lives or whenever she's ready to be led to enlightenment. Because she's going to recognize him when she meets him again. So anyway, this story, I mean, if you saw that, if you're in that village and you saw some guy ruin this lady's garden, nothing in the universe would ever show you by the appearance that he was a holy being doing this out of compassion to hook this woman so he could lead her to enlightenment in the future. I mean, you wouldn't even believe such weird words, you know. So you could not tell. So this is kind of it's scary. It's very scary to think this way. If we're not clairvoyant, and of course the Buddhism would assert that it's possible we can be, but no one thinks like that in our culture. And you know it's possible. And you know that bodhisattvas are being reborn everywhere and taking all kinds of lives just to benefit others. The whole world appears so completely different, you won't believe it. You won't know what to do with the world. So it doesn't mean you get all peculiar, or that could be a Buddha wanting to kill me, or I've let him kill me. No, that's silly. You do what you can not to get killed. But you do not know it's not a Buddha. This is quite scary, really, because our whole view of what we think reality is really quite shaken if we think it's possible that weird-looking people and crazy people can be holy people. There's so many stories in the text. You know, there's one lovely story about a monk and his disciple. The disciple was a monk as well, and they had to cross a river. And there was some disgusting, smelly lady with leprosy, really revolting. And she wanted help to cross the river. And the young monk, the student of the teacher, he had such compassion, he picked her up and put her on his shoulders to carry her across the river. And then she manifested as Vajrayogini, this amazing, blissful red Buddha. She was Vajrayogini the whole time. And because of his incredible compassion, he was able to actually see that it was Vajrayogini. You know, everybody else saw a smelly old leper lady, you know, but it was actually the Buddha. because he was incredible compassion. He purified his mind and he could see that it was actually the Buddha. But what she looked like was a disgusting, smelly old woman, you know. I mean, these stories are really wonderful if you believe they're possible. Otherwise, it's like fairy stories, isn't it? So it's a pretty heavy-duty teaching. You don't know who anybody is, don't judge. It shapes our whole view of the world, you know? Because the worldview is whatever you see, however you see it, it's true. We don't doubt, you know. So this is quite powerful. So I think you can ask me some questions now if you like, in relation to anything, whatever you like. I don't mind. Whatever you like, ask me some questions, darling. Anything at all. Anything, I don't mind.
Venerable,
Yes, who is this talking
it's
to me?
Brian in Los Angeles.
Hello, Brian. Happy to see you, darling.
Hello, Venerable. First
Yes.
of all, everyone should watch the video you posted yesterday because your energy was infectious.
Oh, really? Manhattan, infected
Yes.
by Manhattan.
Yes.
But
And
it's very funny, isn't it?
it's ironic because I was supposed to be in Manhattan this weekend and I gave away my trip, but had I known you'd been there, I would have gone.
Oh, sweetheart, what a pity.
I know.
I know, what a pity. Never mind.
And what's really relevant about the video is, you know, one of the reasons I gave away the trip because I just needed a break
That's
from
right.
traveling. And I did much better under lockdown because things were peaceful and very
Yes,
calm. And
that's
now
right.
I'm back out there and it seems like everyone is more crazy than ever.
I know it's true. I really feel it's true. You're right.
The
Brian, I tell you.
the energy is palpable. And
Yeah.
what I want to ask you is, so, you know, I do my practice every day. I'm
Yes.
trying to, you know, take the medicine and apply it to
Yes.
everyday life.
That's right. That's right.
Sometimes I feel like I am a fish swimming upstream because it seems like people are
Yes.
getting more out of control.
Exactly, Brian.
So
exactly.
the hard thing now is, how do you apply this to real life? How
Darling, I know, Brian, this is it's sort of a bit like you're asking, you know, you're practicing tennis every day on the back courts, and now you've got to go and actually play tennis.
Right.
Well, you know, you can't expect to handle Federer. So you've got to know what you can handle. You've got to know what you can handle, Brian. And this is the thing, once we start doing this work and going inside and doing retreats and things, we become very fragile because the inner world becomes very strong for us. So we have, literally, you have to know what you can handle. So if it becomes overwhelming, you've got to listen to that, Brian, and back away. You can't make yourself crazy. You know, you've got to know what you can handle. So if you, as you progress more and more internally and get more and more strength, then you, to that degree, you can have more and more, you can handle the outside world and you can see it with more compassion, not as maniacs, you know. That's the point. So you've got, the key is to know where you're at, Brian. This is really important. I can't stress it enough.
Yes, thank
Do you
you.
understand? Because
Yeah,
the more you
absolutely.
do your own work, the more eventually that will lead you to realize, oh my God, we're all in the same boat. Look at us. It's just a question of degree. I mean, you mightn't be lying on the street drunk, but you can recognize attachment, you know? So some people are really out of control. And it's, I mean, it's so shocking to come from Santa Fe, where I've been for 18 months, which is a peaceful, sweet little town, you know? I mean, God Almighty. To suddenly be in the middle of crazy Manhattan, like it really is crazier than normal. I swear to you, it was like, I thought, what's going on this weekend? But it's just normal, crazy Manhattan. So, I mean, but, you know, you've got to know what you can handle, Brian.
Yeah.
That's the key point, I swear to you. Do you understand?
Oh yeah, and then when I told you before how, you know, how super crazy to multiply it by to the power of 10, how my job has become over the last 18 months.
Dealing with all the people on the aero, he
Yeah.
works for the aeroplanes.
I'm a flight attendant, and
Yeah.
and then, you know, everything you read in the press, multiply that by 10 because
Right, exactly.
I've never seen anything like it. So it's hard because you feel like following the Dharma, you're in such a
Yes.
minority,
That's right.
and you want to see that, well, you do see that everyone else is suffering,
You
terribly
do see it.
suffering.
You do see it. Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking.
It is.
And I think you realize, well, I really have my work cut out for me.
That's right, darling. No, it's so true, Brian. But also, yeah, I know it really is true. So you just got to keep working, keep internalizing, keep making it real, and then you start, when you know your own suffering, then you can see it everywhere else, and then you start getting more empathy, and then you can handle it, you can navigate it. So just keep working on yourself, baby. Perfect. Okay, thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart. Who else, people? What else? Someone else got something to say? Nothing at all. Anybody? Susie?
Me, I would like
Yes.
to.
Yeah,
Gonzalo.
Zalo. Talk to me.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for
Hello.
your teachings. I'm
Good.
happy you are happy there in Manhattan.
Good.
My question is, I like to travel a lot. I like to do like big trips, long trips, like lots of months or years maybe. And here I'm in Argentina in my home, so I have a routine, so I can practice. And so how, if I go to travel, how to keep the practice?
It
I won't
it
have
needs
a
more.
stable routine.
I know. It's exactly the same. You've got to make a very firm decision, Zalo. You've got to. If you don't make a firm decision, then the circumstances will completely dominate your life. You've got to make a decision, So that's something for me when I was traveling all the time on my teaching tours continuously. I had to keep a discipline, No matter where I went, what I did, I'd always do my morning practice, always do my evening practice. You've got to make a very firm decision. Then you will stick to it and you will feel the benefit. You've got to, because you've got to, yourself when you're traveling, you've got to have some kind of stability to hang on to. And that is a very powerful discipline, to have something in the morning and something at night. And then no matter where you spend the day, it's like you really have that structure. If you don't make that decision, you will lose all your practice. And you'll just get captivated and overwhelmed by all the external world. And that's just wasting your life. Do you understand?
Yeah, right.
That's my main advice. You've got to make a firm decision and decide it every day. And realize that the thing is, when you have enthusiasm, all the mamas say, when you have enthusiasm to do something, is because you know the benefit. So if you can really know the benefit to you of having a disciplined practice, then you will do it. You will do it. But you've got to think of it very consciously and make a firm decision. You have to, otherwise you'll lose it. Of course you will. Then you'll be disappointed with yourself.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's the advice. Okay, we're done.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, sweetheart. What else, people? Anything? Questions?
Cassia has her hand up.
Good, Cassia. Talk to me, darling.
Hi, Ravina.
Hello, sweetheart.
I was just wondering, when a relationship ends and there's a lot of anger,
Yeah.
or it needs to end, like really needs to end abruptly, but there's anger, there's hostility. It's like it feels good that it's really just done, but obviously, in the act of it, you've created negative karma, and maybe no harsh, mean words were said, but just a lot of anger. What do you think? Like, what to do?
So it's really good that you finish it. Then I think it's good that you see that it's good to finish the relationship, because part of the real tragedy is people keep living with all that anger until they kill each other or themselves. That's the worst thing. That's the worst one. So have the courage to actually finish the relationship is really important. But then when you say there is anger, are you meaning in your mind or the mind of both, or what? I mean, because all you can do is work on your mind, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
if there's a lot of anger coming at you, then that's another discussion. It means that's why if you finish a relationship, you've got to completely cut it, especially if it's been a romantic relationship. There's no point in lingering and trying, some people feel guilty about breaking it up and say, oh, I'll try and be his friend. No, that's impossible. But if the anger is just in your mind, you just got to really be very ruthless with yourself and cut it, because it's going to make you crazy. I mean, forget about the anger, the harm it does to other people. Look what it does to ourselves. It's horrible to live with anger, isn't it? It's nightmarish. So you've got to be very disciplined with yourself. And if the other person's angry with you, then you've got to keep distant, You've got no choice.
Right. And then just purify, because in the act
Well, of course,
ending
anyway, I mean, darling, the fact is a proper daily practice has to include the four opponent powers. I mean, Lama Zopa says we're insane not to do it every day, because we are all crazy people. We do dumb things. We've got to clean up our act it's like doing your weeding every day. You can't avoid. You've got to just have that part of your practice. It's just a part, and then that's a great relief for your mind, because it loosens the pain, You must do that. Absolutely. There's no question about that. Yeah, absolutely, darling.
Okay.
Good. All right, sweetheart. Okay, darling. What else, people? Anybody else? Something else? People? Anybody there, Alexis, in the course, in the box?
I don't see any questions, no.
All right, okay. Nothing, no other points, telling people?
Andrew has
questions.
his hand up and Skylar has her hand up.
Okay, go for it then. Talk to me, Andrew. Talk to me, Andrew.
Hello.
Hello,
I'm
darling.
glad to hear you're enjoying New York. It's a fun place.
Yes,
And I can see that your energy and New York's energy might mesh well.
I know, honey. It's very funny, isn't it? I know. It's very strange. It's true. It's true. I'm trying to say.
Santa Fe and New York, they're both great, but yeah. So I'm wondering about what you were saying about, so we don't know who it is that's doing something wrong to us, but it sounds like your advice is keep that in mind, but don't assume it's the Buddha. Like, still be proactive as if this is, a bad guy.
Yeah.
Do
Be
what you,
intelligent. Act according to the rules of the world. Yeah.
right. Okay. So do what you would do, even if it's not the Buddha, but keep in mind, maybe it was. Is that the right takeaway?
Well, I mean, it sounds so peculiar to say you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. And you hear all these stories about that guy riding his horse through some lady's garden. Think about it. What you would have seen is a crazy guy. So I
Right.
mean, so if you have the view, let's say you were a villager and you see this guy and you've got a Buddhist view and you think, well, you don't know who it is. He could be a bodhisattva. But meanwhile, you do whatever's appropriate. You protect the old lady. You maybe shoo him out of the town. Get out of here, you crazy guy. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, to act normal. Like if a gunman comes at you, do whatever you can to prevent the gunman. Do what you can. So, but it's quite a heavy teaching to say you don't know who anybody is, don't judge. It's quite difficult for us because it's not a view that's very comfortable. But you behave as well as you act according to the rules. And the fact of the matter is, if a bodhisattva, a high being, has a gun and for the sake of this person holds them up, they know they're prepared to risk getting arrested because that's part of the deal. Because it's guaranteed someone's going to tackle them and put them to the ground. They're prepared for this. So it's like it's for their side, it's okay. But for your own mind, I mean, it's not an easy thing. It sounds such a weird thing to say, because you think you should just paralyze and go, well, it could be the Buddha, and you know what to do. Act according to the rules of the world, but have this space in your mind, because knowing the world isn't as simple as we think. I mean, it's all I can say, Andrew. It's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
but I think in the normal one, I think forget about the serious ones, but a good way to practice it is when we're always seeing ourselves finding fault with people. That's the real teaching. That's the real point. When you never stop criticizing people, you read the papers, you read the news, you see people, we're always finding fault. So it's a really good wake-up call to shut our mouths and not find fault. So thus to protect your own mind from getting angry. That's the real point about it. That's the real teaching. Just to watch yourself, give it a break, back off. You don't have to have an opinion about everybody, but we love to have opinions about everybody. I think that's the real teaching. You understand?
Yeah. No, you're right. It sounds strange, but you can see that it's powerful because I feel like you can drop so much judgment you're carrying around.
That's right. Precisely. Oh, exactly. That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we know how marvelous it is when people take us on face value and just, I'm running out of power now. I've got to plug myself in. But then if I turn it upside down, my face will be upside down. That's too weird for words. I've got to find a way to do it. Hang on just a second. But yes, I mean, yourself, if a person doesn't immediately judge you, you know how wonderful it is, how good to have kind people in our lives. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's very, it's important. We know how marvelous it is when somebody can be kind, and maybe we say a rude word, but they're not rude back to us. We know how nice that is, that people don't judge us. So remember that's the point, really.
That's good.
Yeah, right.
Thanks so much.
All right, sweetheart. I'll just have to hold my silly old iPad. Okay, go on, you people.
Good luck.
Yeah, go on then, Lou. Tell me what you're going to say.
I'm having trouble with visualizations. I was doing well, like visualizing Buddha above the crown of my head and Vajrasattva, but the last week or so, it just all shut down. I can't visualize anything. It's so, like just Lou, black up there.
Yeah, I know, Lou. It's very interesting, that one. I think some people, I mean, the fact that you even could do it a little bit is amazing, because most people don't have very good visualization. I mean, even for me, all these years doing it, I don't have very good visualization. I just imagine the Buddha is there, and that, be happy with that. Some people can have very good visualization, but not have much feeling or connection with the Buddha. But if you've got some sense of the presence of the Buddha and some confidence in that, that's more important. So just sometimes it's like this, Lisa, don't let it stress you out. Just imagine. That's the main thing. Imagine. Do your best. That's all I can say. It's really, as we get more advanced, of course, we can see things in a more subtle way, but don't get stressed about it. Absolutely. Feel the presence of the Buddha and have sort of confidence in the Buddha. That's more important, I tell you. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, darling. Thanks, Lou. Who else there?
Skylar has a question.
Okay, then. Skylar.
Hi, Venerable Rabina.
Hello, sweetheart.
I'm glad you get to do a vacation a little bit. I was just wondering, what is the Buddhist idea on like reoccurring nightmares? Like you always say to work with our minds and to interpret stuff. And I thought I had gotten rid of these nightmares, but a recent interaction with someone obviously triggered them again. And I'm just wondering if it's something I just need to push through again, or I guess
do you kind of understand psychologically what it's all about? Because so much stuff comes up in our dreams, all the repressed stuff and all the fears come up in our dreams, I think. So in one sense, so I mean, you want to just, I mean, is it something that's a really typical one? You used to get it often, did you?
Yes. It's a dream about basically being kidnapped and held hostage, and I can't reach out to anybody. I can't. I can't.
No, I hear you. I think, Skylar, I mean, what do I know? But I think it's a really, this common feeling of like not being able to get anything done, unable to achieve anything. I think that's a very common way that when our ego is really struggling, and that can be a good sign that you really feel so impotent and hopeless. I think it's a really common thing in dreams. It mightn't be like what you call a nightmare, but feel, like even just you can't walk, or you try to get somewhere, you never get there. That kind of thing is, I just think the fear and panic of our ego deep down in our bones, it manifests in our dreams. And I think sometimes if you're really working on your mind, the ego can be threatened. You can have it can be a good sign. It can be a good sign in a way of just ego having a hard time, because you're working yourself. Because you're working on yourself, your ego's going to be fighting back, So I think take it with a grain of salt. I mean, is it quite exhausting? You wake up all scared or what?
Quite panicked. And
wow.
Yeah. And it does feed into my day. And then like today, still just watching my mind, I was like, my day just kept falling apart. Like the little things kept going wrong. And I'm like, okay, obviously I need to stop for a minute, focus and kind of like do a little reset.
Sure, I think so. And I think because it's all our mind and everything is just programmed in the mind and it manifests in weird ways, doesn't it? So I think just you have to protect yourself just as much as you can, take care of yourself, but don't hold. It's sort of like if we have a very fearful experience during the day, not to hold on to it and remember it and go on about it and on about it. Try to let it go. Try not to go on about it. Try not to make a drama. I mean, bad enough to have the dream, bad enough for someone to really want to kill you. It's bad enough that happens, but try to move on from it. Try just to let go of it and try and just think, maybe it's purification, and be happy about that in a way. When the ego gets threatened. I mean, I've had some dreams too, and you can interpret them. One can interpret this, like really terrifying dream of being chased one time. And then it was clear to me when I woke up, it was a very vivid dream in relation to one of the Buddhas. It was like a purification thing, So maybe think of it that way and try and let go of it. I think it's the best I can say. Don't make it more concrete than it is. It's just stuff planted in our mind that manifests as these visions, You understand, darling?
I was also kind of wondering too, I was listening to the teaching today, and it kind of brought to light, like I'm always reaching out, I'm grabbing my phone and I'm trying to reach out, like refuges outside of me. And I'm wondering if maybe these reoccurring nightmares are more of like a, I need to reach within, like take refuge within my own.
Well, I think generally speaking, that of course is perfect advice. That's the nature of how we are. We're constructed as attachment beings, Skylar. By definition, we have 5 senses and this crazy mind of attachment that live in the outside world. So we are all the time reaching out to the outside world for solace, for comfort, for satisfaction, to distract ourselves. It's very deeply ingrained. So of course, that's absolutely a very good answer. Absolutely, darling.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Skylar. Thank you, sweetheart. So what else? Yes, Fernando, talk to me.
Hello, Venerable Robina.
Yeah.
As everyone has said, I'm also happy that you're really happy there in New York. And I would love to be there too, by the way.
Yes, good.
While Skylar was talking about these nightmares, it made me remember some nightmares that I have in the last 3 years after I broke up with one of my ex-boyfriends. And I ended up, after doing some practice, because it also helped me, this relationship with my ex-boyfriend, to develop this will to help beings like them. But then in the end, I ended up doing the same things that he did. And I was, I don't know, I got stuck there, you know, I didn't know how to keep on doing stuff. And the dreams that I had is that I ended up being killed several times. One after I
in the dream.
Yes, in the dream. I dream, in fact, with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I thought about the Karmapa and His Holiness, the head of the Drikung Kayu.
That's right.
It's cool. And then at the end, I was killed. And then there was another previous situation in which I was also killed. And then when I was killed, the last thing that I said, it was Omami de Wahri, because I knew that it was the end and I was hoping that I could be reborn in the Sukhavati. But I was
okay, so what's the question from all this, Fernando?
How do I? Well, it's in
I don't know. I mean,
the
some of the things you say, I mean, then that if you had a dream and you're being killed and you wanted to be born in a Sukhavati, I think it's a good dream. Go for it, baby. You know, see, I think the thing is very violent dreams, threatening dreams can be a very good sign of purification. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We have to know, you know, because I mean, when ego's being threatened, this dream I had one time, so vivid, so powerful. I woke up terrified. But it was related to Manjushri. It was related to the Buddha of wisdom. It was a really good dream. I was purifying ego. So we got to get a feeling for the sense of the dream, you know. Then it's just the mind working overtime, you know, and it can be purification. So be happy. If you thought about going to Sukhavati, that's a really good dream, honey child. Come on.
Thank you very
That's
much.
good. Come on. Okay. Well, people, look, a few minutes left. Suddenly, hour gone like a dream, as usual. Goes so quick, doesn't it? Few minutes to go, 10 minutes to go. Come on, talk to me. Any other questions? Nobody? Huh? Nobody have a question for me? Christina, how are you? All right, in Sydney?
Oh, good. Thanks, Venerable Robina. I think I raised.
What, darling?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Good to see you. Happy to be here. Yeah, I do have a question actually.
Good, darling.
I accidentally raised my hand and now I wish I
Oh, okay, good.
just gonna lower my hand now. I don't know. I've been thinking about how to say the question. It's about renunciation. I was just thinking, like, we have our lives and we've like built our lives the way they are, but then we have the Dharma that we're trying to integrate into the way that we view the world. And often we try to make time to go on retreat and dedicate more time to doing that. So I guess my question is around, like, how do we know what we're doing is the right thing? I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
no, it's a very important question. It's a huge question, Christina, because in a sense, you know, we could be, yeah, absolutely. So the answer to the question is clearly what determines what we do is our mind. So that's the right thing. So then if we're following attachment, we'll always make the wrong choices. If we're following anger, following power, following greed, following reputation, if that becomes the main motivation, you will always make a mess. It'll be a disaster. So it's a bit like you're going on a road and then you keep seeing a pretty turnoff and you think, oh, that's where the road is. And you just get lost. You just take the wrong path. Then you take another wrong path. And before you know it, you've completely lost the map. So this is why, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, and it sounds kind of cute, but it is profound. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, I always quote this to people, and I guarantee I've said it to you many times. Always aspire, which means want, to do what is most beneficial. So the first thing we will then say is, but how do I know what's most beneficial? Well, honey child, we don't know what's most beneficial. So then what? The point is this: saying every day, having it as part of your morning practice, having it as something you think in the day, automatically arises. Whatever's I want to do whatever's most beneficial. So if you spell that out, that means obviously for you, but eventually for whoever else you have connections with. So my feeling is like this. This is how I think about it. I'm walking on a road, Christina. You are walking on a road, and it's your life. It's your road. So every second you wake up in the morning, you think, may I do what's most beneficial? So in a sense, what you're saying is, I don't know where the right turnoff is, but may I recognize the right turnoff on this journey of mine? You get my point? So, but you don't know where the turnoff is. So what are your choices? All you can do is take one step at a time on this journey, deal with what is in front of you, deal with your husband, your children, your job, whatever is in front of you this second. That's the life. That's where your life has brought you so far. And if you have the view, may I always make the right choices? May I always do what's most beneficial? You deal with what's in front of you. And then and you put one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. So my thought is that having this strong aspiration, may I always make the right choices? May I recognize the turnoff when it comes? May I do what is most beneficial, whatever words you like? That thought nourishes the karmic seeds you already planted lifetimes before. That will nourish the most appropriate karmic seed, and that will then ripen. And one day you'll go, oh, there's the turnoff. There's my next step. And then it becomes an organic, you don't sort of have to make these dramatic decisions every day. Each day you have that aspiration, you will make the right choices that day, and you won't get distracted by some cute turnoff. You won't get distracted by all the wrong attachment and anger ones. You'll always do what's most beneficial, even if it's the tough choice. So you'll go in the right direction and you won't get lost. It's an organic procedure. Unfolds step by step, and you have to put up with the shit on the way because the obstacles are yours. Whatever obstacle you meet on your road, you created that obstacle, honey. It's your karmic appearance. You have to learn to work with that. You can't just make it go away. You can't just run away from it. You can't go back. You can't stand still. You can't take any cute turn off. You got to deal with what's in front of you because you bloody created that. And then you will never get lost if you have that aspiration, because the internal is the one that determines the choices we make, not the external. Are we communicating?
Thank you. Yes.
Good, sweetheart. So be brave. Be brave, Christina, darling. That's my best advice to everybody, continuously, because we get lost. We follow attachment. Oh, that looks like a nice road. I'll go down there because it looks cute. You'll lose the plot. Keep on track. May I do what's most beneficial? You don't know the answer, but that thought nourishes the appropriate karmic seeds, and one day it will ripen. And you won't have to choose it. It chooses itself. The choice will be evident. The turnoff will be evident. The thing to do will be evident, and it becomes very organic, and you trust this process. It's so powerful, and you can relax, you can relax then. So in other words, the way the Lamas put it is, the motivation is what counts. And may I do what's most beneficial is you couldn't get anything broader and bigger than that. You can't get anything bigger than that mentally. It's the most amazing motivation to have. And then you'll be really courageous, and whatever happens, you'll be dealing with it. You'll have the courage to deal with it, and you'll keep moving on your journey, and you won't get lost. All right, everybody, that's my advice to everybody. And it's time to go. All right, precious people. So I've got a couple more days in New York, and I'll be back soon. to my boring old life in Santa Fe. I'm joking. Santa Fe is nice. I'm not complaining. I'm just joking. Okay, darling people, much love, and everybody, so happy to see you all. And just keep moving. Never give up. Never give up. Never give up. May I do what's most beneficial. It's like a broken record in your head. Don't forget it. It will guide you to make the right choices. I promise. Okay? Be brave. Thank you, precious
Venerable
ones.
Rosina.
Thank you,
Bravo.
Alexis.
Thank you very
everybody.
much.